Hi, and welcome to What is Office or Microsoft 365. I'm Sharon Weaver. First, I'd like to take a couple of minutes just to introduce myself. My name is Sharon Weaver. I run an IT consulting company called Smarter Consulting. I am the founder and CEO. I also do some teaching and training, so I'm an adjunct professor at my local college. I teach a lot of Microsoft application courses, both public and private classes. I teach business analysis, Six Sigma, and some leadership courses. I've been working with software development for over 25 years, designing, developing, managing, you name it, I've done it. Everything inside of the entire SDLC lifecycle, from gathering requirements to testing to developing to managing, all of it. About a little over 15 years ago, I fell upon this application called SharePoint. And I thought it'd be pretty cool to pick it up, and I started doing it, and I haven't ever looked back. Since then, I've picked up a few different certifications. I have just recently been brought into the Microsoft Regional Director Group. I am a Microsoft certified trainer. I have a Six Sigma black belt, and I am also a certified business and systems analyst. If you would like to ask me questions, if you want to follow me on Twitter, if you want to reach out to me, feel free to just send me an email, sweaver@smarter-consulting.com. Follow me on Twitter @Sharon E. Weaver, or you notice I've got this fun QR code. You can just pull your phone up and scan it, and it will actually take you straight to the Contact Us form that I have for my business. Put your questions in there, and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. All right, so what is this Office 365 thing that everybody's talking about? I put this session together because a lot of people come up to me and ask me questions, and they don't even understand what the whole idea between Office 365 is. They think, oh, well, is it just Office or is it something more? And so I put this session together just to kind of talk about what it is. First of all, Office 365 is primarily around licensing, and it up till now has mostly been called either Office 365, and then there's a separate licensing that's called Microsoft 365. And what's happening is Microsoft is starting to combine all of this into one offering, and they're updating it from the Office 365 and Microsoft 365 licensing to just simply be Microsoft 365. And one of the important things to note, I think, is that Microsoft 365 is not just Office. So originally it started with some kind of basic Office applications, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and then they added on some cool stuff. They added some other apps, and they gave you some cloud space, and they gave you a OneDrive, and then they said, well, here's SharePoint, and they kept adding on all these different applications. And ultimately what's happened is that Microsoft has created something called the Productivity Cloud. And a productivity cloud doesn't just include Office. It does still have your classic Office apps, but in addition, it has things like cloud services, device management, and some advanced security offerings that you wouldn't ordinarily get with just a regular Office 365 license. Most importantly, what its intention is to connect people with content and to be able to make sure that you can manage that. So first of all, like I mentioned, you do get your classic Office apps, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You get email and calendaring options through Outlook and Exchange. You can now use chat, calls, and meetings with Microsoft Teams. You get storage from things like OneDrive and SharePoint. But in addition, it gets more than that. So beyond just having your normal Office applications, you can increase your productivity in a couple of different ways. The two primary things that are coming up is being able to replace manual forms with electronic forms and electronic applications. And you can do that with things like Microsoft Forms or Power Apps. Another really important thing is that a lot of people are wanting to automate their business processes. And in the past, we might have done this in SharePoint or in a .NET application. And now there's some new tools to be able to do that, and one of them is called Power Automate, and it allows you essentially to be able to build workflows and to be able to connect all of your different content and your applications all together. But in addition, Microsoft 365 can also provide some protection around data security and device security. It also provides the opportunity for businesses to not have to worry about IT management so much, and gives you a solution to manage your users, your devices, and your data. Microsoft 365, like I said at the very beginning, is more of a licensing group than it is just an application. So when we think about the Office applications, you used to be able to buy Word or buy Excel or buy PowerPoint, and you still can. You can still go online or go to your local store and you can buy Office 2019. Just like you always could. You could use it and keep it as long as you want. But what's happening is the world has moved towards more of a subscription model where the developers continue to update the software as we go forward and make changes and add new features. As security things change, people want more, and they don't want to have to go buy a new piece of software every time something changes. So what Microsoft has done is they've tried to group these offerings into things that make sense so that people can get what they need at the price they can afford to pay. And instead of coming up with maybe $100 or $200 or $300 to buy a grouping of software, you can buy it in a subscription plan just like you do a lot of your other apps at a very affordable monthly cost, and you can get just the things you need. And the really neat thing to this is that you can pay for it month to month, and if you need it, you pay for it. And if for whatever reason at some point you don't need that license anymore, you can just turn that license off and you don't have to pay for it anymore. And so, for example, in my company, we have many people who work with me, and if I need to get a license for somebody while they're doing some work for me, I can add a license, I can provide it to them. But then if they don't need it anymore because they're not using those products, I can simply turn that license off, and it's just a monthly cost I don't have to pay. So licensing comes in a couple of different buckets. First and foremost, if you want to get this for yourself or your family, really easy. There's a Microsoft 365 for Home offering. You can either buy it for one person or you can buy it for your family, and a family is considered anything up to 6 people. So you'll be licensed for 6 different logins to be able to use those applications. For business and enterprise, they've kind of divided it up into what we consider small and medium-sized businesses and large businesses. And you don't have to count how many people you have if you want to use the enterprise offering. It costs a little bit more and it has more options, but you do have to make sure that you need the things that you're wanting to get and you're willing to pay for that. So for a small business or medium-sized business, there's a couple of different offerings, and it's actually called Microsoft 365 for Business. There's a basics, there's a standard, and a premium. There's also enterprise level Microsoft 365 for large businesses that include some additional things. So you're going to see things like an F or an E, and the F is going to stand for something called frontline workers, and that is basically for your people who just simply need to log in and access their applications, but they don't really need to do anything else. And then you've got what's called an E licensing, which E stands for enterprise. So you're going to see an E3 or an E5 based on the type of features that you want to use. I'm not going to get too far in the details on this. All you need to do is go to Microsoft's website, click on products, and then you can look at the different options depending on what it is that you want. I considered putting in pricing and details and apps, and every time I build a slide for this, they change it not too long after that because they're constantly providing more and more value for these licenses. And so I'm choosing to not put it in here just because I want you guys to be able to go out and look at this information. The last option that they have is the Microsoft 365 for education and nonprofit. This is going to include things like schools and churches, and also charity options. So if you look at the first one, it's education, and that's going to start with an A. So you're going to see licenses that are at A1 and A3 or an A5. Those are primarily delegated to education institutions. So things like schools are going to be able to use that. They've got some different features and some different pricing models around them. And then, of course, for nonprofits, you can have small nonprofits and large nonprofits. And you notice that the large nonprofit is very similar to the enterprise offerings. In the small nonprofits, it's very similar to the business offerings. And that's because essentially nonprofits are businesses. They're small and large businesses. However, they are registered with the government as not trying to obtain a profit, and so Microsoft gives them a discount for that. So for more information on the different licensing, I highly suggest that you go out to the Microsoft website, click on products, choose the product that you're looking for in terms of yourself, your business, or an education or nonprofit area, and then you can go and dig into the details. It will show you what the pricing is currently. It will also show you what the different applications and product features you can get with this are. All right, so that's kind of the details around how it's organized from a license perspective. Now I kind of want to talk about what it contains in terms of how the pieces and parts work. This is one of the things that a lot of people ask me about is, okay, I know that I've got Word, and I know that I've got Excel, and I know that I've got PowerPoint, but how does it all work together? So essentially, Microsoft 365 starts with this concept called the Microsoft 365 group. And don't worry, I'll show you pictures here in a minute. But the Microsoft 365 group, it's a service that's already set up on the back end. It's designed to work with the existing Microsoft 365 tools that you're getting in your licensing. It lets you collaborate with other people whenever you're using certain tools. So for example, if you're writing documents, you're making spreadsheets, you're working on project plans, maybe even scheduling meetings or sending emails. The group allows you to have one group of people that all work on that. So you can choose those people that you want to collaborate with, and then what will happen is you can set up resources to share amongst that particular group. So you can share things like an Outlook inbox, a calendar, or even maybe a SharePoint document library. Once you've created this group to be able to share those resources with, at that point, you no longer have to think about, do I want to share something from SharePoint? Do I need to add somebody to a distribution list? Do I need to share my calendar? You don't have to worry about those types of things because anybody that's in the group automatically has access to any of those resources. And by adding members to the group, they automatically get access to anything that you've defined for that group. And by removing somebody out of that group, they don't have access to that anymore. So it's really handy for keeping track of things. This is also the newest experience for both distribution lists and shared mailboxes. Essentially, the old school style of having a distribution list where you have certain people on there and you want to send out email, or you want to replace your shared mailboxes. I don't know if you guys remember in the old days where we had shared mailboxes, but if you have those, essentially having an Office 365 or Microsoft 365 group will replace both the distribution list and the shared mailbox. You'll still get to see an Outlook. You'll still get to be able to send emails. You'll still be able to check inboxes. It's just all basically tied back to that group instead of being individual lists or individual mailboxes. The really nice thing about the Microsoft 365 groups is that you can decide if they're public or private. You do it right off the bat, and you can always change it afterwards. So let's say you make a public group and you decide to change your mind later and you want it to be private. It's no big deal. Any owner can go into the group settings and just simply swap it from a public group to a private group or from a private group to a public group, just like that, and it'll automatically update the settings. Another handy thing for having groups because you can make it public or private on the fly. Public basically means that anybody inside your organization, inside your domain, inside your company, anybody that's federated into your tenant can join that group. They can see it, they can join it. They don't need permission. They can just basically look for it and say they want to be part of it, and then they can hop in. If it's a private group, then you have to invite people. You have to tell them it's there. You have to send them either a code or an invite to participate in that group. And you can pick who is in and who is out so that you know who has access to that. In addition, you can invite guests to collaborate with your group. as long as it's set up and allowed and configured properly by your IT admins. Guest administration in Microsoft 365 is a setting in policies in the admin center. If for whatever reason you can't invite guests, you need to speak with your IT department. The way to know usually is if you want to add a guest, simply type in maybe your Gmail account or a Yahoo account, something that's not your current email address for work. And if you can invite guests, it will pop up and it'll say, do you want to invite this person as a guest? And if you can't invite guests, it will say that they can't find that person. It's just a real quick and easy way to know if you can or cannot have guests. Like I said, if you can't invite guests and it's something you want to do, I recommend that you reach out to your IT admin or your IT department and chat with them about what it is you're trying to accomplish. And sometimes they will allow you and sometimes they won't, depending on your company policies. So here's just a really easy step through for how to set up a Microsoft 365 group. So basically, first, you want to create a new group and you want to give it a name, something that makes sense. So just remember, kind of like your distribution list or your shared inboxes, you want something that's going to be short and sweet and make sense. So maybe something like HR or human resources for human resources. You could even do something like benefits or payroll or marketing. The shorter, the better. I highly recommend that you don't use any special characters. You don't need to worry about spaces anymore because Microsoft will take care of that for you, and it'll take all the spaces out before it creates the email address for that group. If you have an IT administrator helping you, typically they're going to have a naming convention that they're going to follow. And so you can probably just turn in what you need and they will help you set it up from there. After you've created your group or set it up with a name, then you can select if you want this to be a public or private group. And remember, a public group will allow anybody in your organization, and a private group will make it so that whoever the owner or owners are will have to select who the members are for that group. So you're going to put those people in that group. And then if you want to invite guests from outside your organization, you can, if they're allowed. One quick reminder here is guests cannot be owners of groups. So guests can come in, they can be members of the group, they can access your content, but they can't ever be an owner. So if you want somebody who is outside your organization to be an owner of a group, then you're going to have to work with your IT department on that because guests are not allowed to do that. Once you've got everybody in your group, then you can collaborate together and share content. So the next thing that's part of Microsoft 365 is the apps. And once again, we have kind of our classic apps, which is what used to be Office 365, but check it out. We have a whole bunch of new stuff, and this is not all of them for sure. But I'm going to kind of walk through a few of them just so you can get a taste for what's out there. So the first one I want to go over is just your classic Office apps, right? You've got Word, Excel, PowerPoint for creating documents, spreadsheets, and presentations. Check, right? We've got that in there. We know that it's there. In addition, we do have Outlook. And not only can Outlook allow you to see your email and calendar, but it lets you manage email and calendar for your groups as well. You've got Outlook Online, Outlook for your desktop, and also Outlook Mobile for your phone. All three of them allow you to access your stuff anywhere. You can see those groups. You can see the inbox and the calendar for any of those groups right in any of your Outlook applications. All right. The next tool some people know about and some people don't is called OneNote. And OneNote essentially replaces any paper notebooks or binders that you might have. It's a digital notebook. It has tabs, it has sheets of paper, you can templatize it. So really similar to some of the things you can do in Word. The only difference is you can set it up with dividers and you can type in it and then you can search it afterwards. And just a tip here, if you want to learn more of these deep dives into some of these applications, I am doing another session called Office and SharePoint Collaboration, and I'll be talking about these apps in a little bit more detail and show you kind of a demo of what they do and how they work. OneNote's really neat. For those of you who haven't used it, I highly suggest that you at least go take a look at it. It's got a lot of integration with some of the other applications. OneDrive is backed by SharePoint, but essentially the intention of OneDrive is to replace your personal network drive. For some people, they'll call it the S drive or an H drive, or you might have a letter that you use at your organization to define your personal network drive. Or sometimes you just save it on your hard drive, which is your C drive. OneDrive gives you the option to save your personal work documents to a place that is accessible. Therefore, you can access those files on your phone through the mobile app, online through the online app, or on your computer through Teams. And so if you put them out there, it allows you to access your personal work files anytime, anywhere. They're fully backed up and they're fully searchable. It's also really easy to move them in and out of SharePoint if you have them in OneDrive. So if you're not using OneDrive now, you might look into it. SharePoint, one of my favorites, still out there, stores, organizes, and manages all of the different files, and it also does things like version control. SharePoint has been kind of used for some business applications, but truthfully, it's the backbone of the Microsoft 365 productivity cloud because it's where all of your content is stored. No matter where you're using it, whether it's Teams or whether it's OneNote, any of those types of things, all of the files are stored directly in SharePoint. In addition, SharePoint still will let you do things like intranets and team portals where you can have pages and web parts and access content just like you would in any other version of SharePoint. One of the newest players on the team is Teams. It's essentially a one-stop collaboration application where it lets you see everything in one place. So it's kind of like a browser, and it's kind of like an application, and it's kind of Skype, and it's kind of a little bit of everything. You can go in, you can group everything by team, you can subgroup everything by channel, and then you can have tabs for each of those things so that you're looking at stuff organized and categorized in a way that makes sense for the people who are working with that particular content. Also, don't forget to check out some of the new apps. This is not all of the new apps, but it's a few of them. So first of all, we've got something called Planner. So if you haven't checked out Planner, Planner is a team task management application. So how many times do you need to assign tasks out for a very small project or just a small team, and you don't want to have to mess with the hassle of project? You don't really want to build a SharePoint task list. It's a little more in depth than using tasks in Outlook, and you really want something that's in between. Planner is perfect for that. Planner has its own application, it has its own mobile app, and it integrates directly into Teams. And so you can create tasks quickly and easily. You can assign them, you can put due dates on them, you can categorize them. In addition, they integrate directly with To Do, and so then you can keep everybody on task knowing what they're working on. If you haven't seen To Do yet, To Do is a very nice application as well. It's a personal task management application. Now, what's really nice about To Do is I can have To Do on my phone or on my computer, and I can actually see all of the tasks that are assigned to me in Planner directly in To Do, and so I don't have to go look for them. It pulls my personal tasks together with the things that I've been assigned to on my team, and I can see everything in one place. Stream is a new application. It's kind of like YouTube for companies. So you can create videos, you can store videos, you can search for videos, but more than that, you can also make those videos available to people across your organization. So we used to store videos in SharePoint and then share those out, but you know, sometimes videos can get really big, and so they don't really fit in SharePoint. And so sometimes we would buy another media server or another media application to be able to store those videos. Well, Stream was designed exactly for that. It was designed to store video files, share video files, search and access video files. In addition, if you go into Teams and add a tab for Stream, you can share out one video right there in Teams, or you can create a library and share a library directly in Teams. Power Apps and Power Automate are two of our newer things as well. Power Apps allows you to create business applications quickly and easily. You can then store those applications and make them accessible anywhere you want to across the cloud. So we can create a Power App. You can then make it available on a mobile device as a standalone application. You can create an application that lives in SharePoint. You can create an application that lives in Teams, and that way your people can access it wherever they are used to going to get their content, to fill out things, to see things. So it makes things really easy. Power Automate allows you to automate tasks and make things more efficient across applications. So if you want to do a simple approval email or you want to move an item whenever something happens, you can create a Power Automate for that. And inside of there, those workflows will automate the entire process. So let me show you how this kind of works together. So we've got Office 365. And remember, we created our group with our people. Okay, so we've got people who have access to a group. And then what happens is remember those apps we talked about? Well, that group has access to those apps. So we've got all the apps that are only accessible by a specific group of people. And as I add people in and out of those groups, they have access to everything that that group needs to work with to collaborate on day-to-day stuff. In addition, I told you a little bit about Teams. So Teams has a couple of different applications. It has a web-based application, it has a mobile application for your phone, and it has a desktop application. Teams adds to what we're already doing. So it pulls everything together. The Teams application allows us to do things like chatting with our coworkers, where we can share things like GIFs, stickers, files, messages. You can share those and you can chat with people in both private one-on-one settings or a group where maybe I have multiple people. And the really nice thing about the group chats is if I want to add somebody after I've already made the group, then I can decide when I add that person how much of the history they're going to see. They might get to see nothing because they're new to the group. They might get to see the last certain amount of days because I want them to catch up on something, or maybe I want to show them the entire history, but I get to choose what I show them. I can upload things from my computer, I can pull it out of my OneDrive, I can pull it out of my most recent files, and I can share those right in chat. I can also meet with my team members on video and or audio. I can do it on demand out from one of my chat sessions. So if I'm already talking to somebody and I want to be able to start a phone call or start a video call, I can do it right there on demand. I can schedule a meeting for a team channel. So if I go into Teams and I just want to create a meeting for one channel within a team, I can schedule a meeting directly for that channel. Or I can still create my Outlook meeting like I always do and apply a Teams meeting to it. I can also collaborate directly in Teams. So I can collaborate directly on files. I can collaborate in conversations in Teams and channels, and a lot more. Okay, so let's tie all this together that we've learned. So we've got our Office 365, which is becoming Microsoft 365. And remember, we first start by creating our group, add the people that we want to participate in the group, give them access to the applications by way of the group. And now we're going to lay Teams right on top. And this is where people get really confused. Well, what's the difference between Teams and all these other applications? Well, Teams simply sits on top of these applications to allow you to find them all in one place. So what happens is a Microsoft team joins up with a Microsoft group, one for one. If you make the team first, it will make the group, and then the group will have access to all the resources. If you make the group first and you want to join it to a team afterwards, when you make your team, simply select the option that says connect to an existing group, not create a team from scratch. And if you say connected to an existing group, any existing groups that you are the owner of will show up. Just remember, you have to be the owner of the group and you have to have created it for you to join it to a team. So if you want to do this, make sure you talk to your IT admin or get trained on it if you haven't done it before, because sometimes it takes a little bit of practice. So what happens is that Microsoft group that got created will join up to the Microsoft team and they'll be best buds for life. And then what will happen is Microsoft Teams will allow that group to share all the applications right there inside of Teams. And everybody will be able to access whatever they need. Okay, most importantly, once everything is all put together and you understand groups and you understand apps and you understand how Teams works, then now we want to use this to work together day to day. So there's lots of things that you can do with integrating and collaborating within Microsoft 365. First and most importantly is the ability to collaborate with other people. I don't want to have to go look for things. I just want to be able to find everything in one place, and Microsoft Teams lets us do that. We can go into the Microsoft Teams application, we can find things in tabs that are relevant to the team or the channel that we're working with. We have access to the things we need, and we don't have access to the things we don't. SharePoint Online still exists, and like I said, you can still use it to create an intranet or team portals where people can work together and share their content. We haven't really talked about Yammer much yet, but Yammer allows you to share information with groups, and then you can either access it via the Yammer app on your phone or on your computer. You can even push it to a SharePoint web part or a tab in Teams. The nice thing about all three of these is that you're storing content, you're sharing information, you're communicating out to the right people in the right places. And that way people don't have to go look for things because you're pushing it to them. You're targeting the groups that you want to get that information to, and they're signed up and they have access to the things that they need to work with. And we're not giving them a bunch of information that doesn't have anything to do with what they're working on. While we're in there, we can co-author deliverables. The things like Word and Excel and PowerPoint, people can work on them at the same time. They can open them in Teams, they can open them in the online version, they can even look at them on their phones. So what's really great is everybody can be working in the same document at the same time, as opposed to 5 people working on a different version of the document and then having to pull all that in together. You can actually put an Office file in SharePoint or in Teams and access it from there. And then everybody can work on the same document together and it will update as you guys work on it. You can manage all of your files using the Microsoft 365 Productivity Cloud. You can access any of those files, you can update any of those files, and remember, it's easy to share the content with anyone, anytime, anywhere, using OneDrive and SharePoint. On top of that, just remember that anybody's in the group already has access to anything shared with the group. So if you have that set up properly and you want to share more stuff out, all you have to do is add somebody to the group and they automatically have access to the content that is relevant to them. And don't forget, we can solve business problems as well. Super easily automating processes with things like Power Automate. You can create custom forms and applications with Power Apps, and you can store and create training videos using Stream. All kinds of cool stuff you can do in Microsoft 365. Tons of information out there. If you would like more information and you want to learn more about the applications themselves, make sure and come to my other session where I'll be talking about the different applications and how they all work. I normally leave about 10 or 15 minutes at the end of all of my presentations for questions. Obviously, this is a video session, so you can't ask me questions while I'm in the room. But what you can do is contact me. So if you have questions on this or anything else related to any of this content, feel free. Find me on Twitter and message me. Send me an email at sweaver@smarter-consulting.com, or simply fill out the contact us form and send me your question. I will do my best to respond as quickly as I can and help you with anything I can going forward. Thank you and have a fantastic day.